Ontario is getting 820,000 more vaccines delivered this week, but as many have noted, there were hundreds of thousands sitting in freezers during the weekend, prompting a lot of criticism. Dr. Isaac Bogosh is on the Vaccine Distribution Task Force. He says the pace of vaccinations needs to pick up, but explains why so many are in freezers.
We hear about this about once a week, usually around the time that vaccines are delivered into the freezers. And unfortunately, the second 800,000 vaccines are delivered into the freezer, you've got 800,000 vaccines in the freezer. Like, that's what happened. Now, we've obviously got to pick up the pace of vaccination. You have to. What happens is, I think it's important. I'm not going to pretend to be a supply chain scientist because I'm not a supply chain scientist, but I think it's generally agreed that it's not like one big freezer with vaccines in it. Of course, this is distributed throughout the province, and some places are vaccinating at a faster pace than others. And you need about 3-ish days of supply to help coordinate between the various sites and to also account for any supply chain issues, which, like we all know, have arisen several times in the 2021 calendar year. So I think it's fair to say that you certainly need a few days supply in there, and that's been widely acknowledged. I think it's also fair to say that we need to pick up the pace of vaccination. And I think it's also fair to say that when someone delivers a lot of vaccines in the freezer, when you take a snapshot in time, there's a lot of vaccines in the freezer.
Dr. Bogosh says on a good day, about 85,000 doses are administered, but it should be more than 100,000. He warns the vaccines won't come fast enough to beat the third wave, and tougher restrictions are needed.
The case numbers continue to rise, and it's kind of not surprising that they're continuing to rise because the most recent measures never really took there's no real meaningful change, especially to the areas that were most heavily impacted. So, for example, a place like Toronto or Peel, which is responsible for a significant number of cases, went from gray zone into gray zone. Like nothing happened, nothing changed in these heavily impacted areas. So I don't think we should expect that things are going to miraculously get better, because they're not. They're not. We need to take action to really stop the spread of this infection.
When you say we need to take action, what action do we need to take?
Yeah, I think it involves doing several things simultaneously. Sadly, when case numbers are this high, there's not a lot of targeted or focal measures that you can take that will rapidly bring cases down. And sadly, one of the only tools left in the toolbox that's going to work is a lockdown analogous to what we had in January of 2021.
In January, the province closed all schools in hot zones, and the province was under a stay-at-home order. Last week, the Minister of Health said they were not going to do another stay-at-home order because it was too hard on people.